Hey, Stacy. 4 is a quorum, right?
It is.
Fantastic.
Hi, Stacy.
Good evening. We do have other members that committed to coming this evening, so we'll see if they join. But we could technically get started.
I was going to say, by my clock, it's 7 o'clock now.
Yes, so whenever the chair is ready.
Happy to do that. Thank you, everyone. Why don't we call this meeting to order, and we'll begin with a roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Present.
Commissioner Matsuno. Commissioner McNerney. Commissioner Aziz. Commissioner Galassi. Here. Commissioner Tainer.
Here.
And Chair Caldwell.
Here. We do have a quorum, correct?
We do.
And that takes us to our salute to the flag. And if I could have Commissioner Jackson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. That takes us to approve order of the agenda. Would any member of the commission like to reorganize the agenda or take it as outlined by staff? Well, I'll make a motion to approve the order of agenda as is. Is there a second?
Second it.
If we could do a roll call vote.
Oh, of course. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
Yes.
Chair Caldwell.
Yes. That moves us to item E, blue folder items, additional backup materials. And we do have one blue folder item, item E1. And if staff walk us through that, or do we just receive and file?
This is the comment for 227, right?
Right. So we just receive and file that for that one item.
Perfect. Did everybody have a chance to get that? I know it was emailed. Okay. And also, I did notice that Commissioner Matsuno is there. Welcome back.
Oh.
So with that, is there a motion to receive and file?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. And we'll do a roll call.
Of course. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno.
Yes.
And Chair Caldwell.
Yes. So that takes us to item F, our consent calendar. We do have two items, F1 and F2. The first is to approve an affidavit of posting for the Preservation Commission regular meeting of November 3rd, 2021. And then we also have F2, approval of minutes of the Preservation Commission regular meeting of May 5th of 2021. And I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar as a whole. Is there anybody like to make a motion?
Also move.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We'll do a roll call vote.
Of course. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno.
Yes.
And Chair Caldwell.
Yes. So with that, are there any items excluded, or are there any excluded consent calendar items? It doesn't look like there are. That'll move us to H, public participation on non-agenda items.
Chair, there's no one signed up to speak on non-agenda items tonight.
And then ex parte communication. Do any members of the commission have any items to report under ex parte communication?
I do have one question. I don't have any ex parte, but on the blue folder item, kind of objecting to the one on 218, I believe. They're not here to answer any questions at all?
No, they did not sign up to attend the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And if I just want to, when we get to that item, I can address some of the comments or concerns that were outlined in the letter.
I do have some questions.
Great.
Okay. So with that, that takes us to item J, our public hearings. And we do have our first public hearing is J1, public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and certificate of appropriateness for additions to a locally designated landmark property pursuant to Chapter 4, Title 10 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code. That does include a recommendation, and it looks like Stacy, you're listed as the contact. Will you be presenting the item today?
I will. Okay. Let me get myself. Okay. So the project site is located on the east side of Alberta, just north of Garnett. The neighborhood is zoned R3 multifamily residential, and this lot is approximately 5,520 square feet in size. This is a Craftsman California bungalow, and it was built back in 1921. There is a rear addition to the house that was built in 1961, and the detached garage and workshop towards the rear of the property was built in 1967. This property was locally designated as a historic resource back in 2008, and it's known as the Hoyt Snooks house. The main character defining features for this home include horizontal wood siding, wood windows with heavy wood trim. You've got your street facing gable roofs with exposed rafter ends. And you also have that wonderful covered entry porch with porch posts. There are some brick accents that you'll see at the site. It's along the porch base as well as the base of the porch posts. And there are a couple of columns in the northern side yard that are brick. As I mentioned, the rear addition was built back in 1961 and it actually has vertical siding, which is very different from the original home. So that will be removed as part of this project. And then as you've seen, wonderful property also maintains its historic context. There are several adjacent original homes. So you have that wonderful fluid look along South Alberta. Here's the front of the property. You can see that these gable roofs here, this wonderful front entry porch. You've got these angled rafter ends that are exposed. Here's the brickwork, the brick bases. The porch base is brick, and then the columns in the side yard are also brick. Here you can see the 1961 rear addition to the house. This actually is the original home here. So it ends right here, and that rear addition begins back here with the vertical siding. And then here's the view along the driveway southern side of the home. And then something else that is indicative of Craftsman architecture are the double hung windows. You can see several of them on this home. So the rear first floor addition will be 477 square feet. It will expand that rear family room, add a bathroom, as well as a junior accessory dwelling unit. The rear second floor addition will stack above this space and be 914 square feet. It will include 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, a study, and then a rear balcony facing the rear yard. All of the additions will be behind but attached to that original home. And then all the exterior siding will be horizontal wood siding to be similar but slightly differentiated by being a little bit wider than the original narrow siding. The main windows will be wood single or double hung windows with heavy wood trim, and then secondary windows will be wood casement. The street facing gable that will be above the second floor will have the same pitch and style as the original gables facing the street. Here you can see this is the front elevation here. You've got that existing covered entry porch. This is an existing gable, and this is the new gable at the second floor. This is the driveway view. Here we have the original home up front here. Here's the back of that house, original home. And then back here, you'll have the door to the junior ADU along this side area. And then within this space is the stairway leading up to that second floor. And here's that rear balcony. Here's the rear elevation. You can see the balcony here. And then here you can see that gable with the angled rafter ends. And then along here, this is the northern elevation, original home. You see these single double hung windows here, and then similar windows on the addition area for this stacked 2-story area. So the preservation ordinance, it includes the Secretary of Interior standards, which are posted by the National Park Service. Those are the 10 key elements we have to compare every project to. One of the main things is maintaining the use of the site in the same manner as it was originally intended. And of course, it was a residential use originally and will continue to be a residential use. All of the distinctive features and materials on the original home will be preserved. And the additions will be behind and subordinate to that original home. In theory, because it's attached to the back of the house, you could technically remove the additions in the future and the original landmark home would maintain its original form and integrity. The new wood siding will be slightly wider than the original. This lets us know in the future, for future preservation planners, they can go out to the site and see the original narrow siding on the historic home and then the wider siding on the additions. So in general, the form and integrity of the original home will remain unimpaired and will retain the essential elements that make this craftsman property so special. The additions, we consider the additions not to detrimentally alter the property. And then aside from the preservation ordinance, we of course look at the R3 zoning. The rear additions meet the setbacks both in the side yard and along the driveway. The property meets the outdoor living space. They have to at least have 800 square feet of rear yard space. Because it's adjacent to the family room in that rear area, there's actually a 200% bonus. So the calculations work out for the 800 square feet. And then the building height will be well below the 30-foot maximum allowed for this zone. I do have some suggested conditions that are reflected in the draft resolution, that the new horizontal wood siding on the first and second floor additions shall be a minimum 4 inches in width to differentiate between the narrow siding on the original landmark home and the new work. This is because original narrow siding is usually right around 3 inches in width. All new windows shall be wood single or double hung, except for the bathroom windows, which shall be wood casement. All the openings shall have wood trim similar in style to the original landmark home. And then lastly, the proposed second-story gable shall have exposed wood rafter ends with a similar angled design as the original landmark home. Staff recommends that the Preservation Commission adopt the exemption declaration and approve the certificate of appropriateness for rear 1 and 2-story additions to the landmark property located at 118 South Alberta Avenue. Thank you.
Staff, I apologize. I probably should have opened up a public hearing prior to that presentation.
That's okay. Let's open the public hearing.
Yes, please. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Let us now just for the record state that staff did give a excellent presentation. Thank you very much for that. And with that, I do believe that we need to administer the oath for anybody that would like to testify on this project or this hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item?
Chair, so we don't have any members of the public signed up to speak on the item, but we do have one e-comment I can read if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Okay, so it's an e-comment from Elaine Vandermeer. And she says, I'm a longtime resident of the 100 block of South Alberta Avenue. I welcome the opportunity to comment on the topic of requested changes at 118 South Alberta Avenue. I object to this motion because this change could negate original designation of a landmark property. As a charter city, I hope that Redondo Beach will continue to maintain the integrity of its established programs. Sincerely, Elaine Vandermeer, 128 South Alberta. And that concludes the comments.
Thank you very much. And so that clearly a statement in opposition. It doesn't appear as though there is anybody else here.
The applicant is present, however. So if the applicant would like to speak, we should do the oath for the applicant.
Perfect. If you could raise your right hand and affirm this oath.
Dan, if you would like to participate, go ahead and do the oath. Maybe he can't hear me.
Oh, did you talk to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you could just raise your right hand and affirm, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, everything is true. Everything is true.
And did you have any statement on the item?
No, I don't have any statements.
Well, then, with no additional public input, I believe we can close the public participation.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
I'll move we close the public participation.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
And are there any objections? Hearing none, and with a couple of new members of the commission, I would state that the public comment portion is now completed. And this would be the opportunity for the members of the commission to ask any questions or make any comments. Would any member of the commission like to comment?
I would just ask what prompted you to take on this project it seems like it's almost going to double the size of the house. So I was just curious what inspired you to do this?
That's for you, Dan.
You asking me the style. You asking me the style. The style is look like a casement. It's a craftsman style.
So
I
maybe
copied. Yeah, I copied all the detail from the existing house.
Dan, do you know any background of the owner's goals for the site?
They don't have any goals for the house. They just want us to provide the house look like existing house right now. Even the colors, even the material, the siding, everything just look like the same existing house.
Hi, if I may. Hello to everyone. I'm new here. I'm not satisfied with that answer, honestly. So do you know, Stacy, or anybody else, what the reason for this expansion is? Because it's a very substantial expansion of the existing property.
Right. I can give some general feedback because I've been working with the owners for quite some time, and Antonio has also assisted with this project. Is the original home is very small, right? Very small.
Yes.
Very it's essentially originally a one-bedroom house. And then they expanded to create a family room off the back, which is what they did in 1961. And I think that room may have even doubled as an extra bedroom. So as it exists today, I think there may only be 2 bedrooms in the home. I know they have a growing family. So I suspect that that with their growing family, young children, that they really need to expand. And I also feel that the pandemic obviously didn't help, and everybody ended up working from home and needing space. So when I see the study upstairs. I think of the kids, on their computers, going from their bedrooms to the computers. So I really think they just wanted to make this site more livable. Of course, the additional square footage, that is why it is before this commission. So it is up to this group to determine if the amount of square footage is appropriate for the original home, if the additions are compatible, that those are all up for discussion tonight.
Okay, if I may just continue to follow up. Again, my apologies. I'm new here. So if we basically approve this extension, will the new structure altogether be designated as landmark as well? Or is it just the portion which currently exists there?
So,
I'm sorry, Stacey, will the tax benefit that the owner will enjoy be applied to the entire square footage?
I believe it will be.
Okay, thank you.
Stacey, since you were originally involved with this, were the ultimate plans, were they larger or the same, except that they were altered? What were the original plans to go forward with this, or can you say?
Well, I can't really speak for the owner, but I can tell you that the version of drawings you're seeing tonight is a reduced version of what we started with earlier this year. So this project has been months in the making. Originally, there was a roof deck, right, Dan? There was
yes, that's correct.
Top. There were exterior stairs to the roof deck. Part of it looked like a 3-story structure. So we worked on this for a few months, and luckily Dan was great to work with. We were able to shape it into what it is today so that it's a much more modest 2-story addition. I don't have the drawings before me right now to share them with you, but it was much larger than what you see tonight.
And if I could add real quick that we have been in discussions with this property owner for at least 2 years, I want to say, probably longer than that, and going back and forth, trying to get a project that would be acceptable to bring forward to the commission. I think that's why it's taken so long, that we've been kind of negotiating and explaining the process to the property owner. There's a bit of a language barrier and maybe cultural barrier there to kind of get over, but we've been, the property owner has been patient in our taking her through this process to get this project to this point where it's at today. But it has been over the course of a pretty extended period of time. And as Stacey kind of hinted, the project was much larger in its original concept. So this is a substantial reduction that you're seeing today.
Question.
I have a question. Is the original floor plan in the drawing packet that we were sent? Because I couldn't identify it.
Right. So the original floor plan is not included in that packet, no. But I can show you the outline. It is the original rectangular front portion of the house that is the original floor plan. But no, we didn't include that in the
Well, I guess what I meant was the original home plus the 1961 addition, because you said it was a 1-bedroom house, but that's the original 1920s house.
Correct.
What was included in the back, the 1961 addition?
Right now, it's listed as part of the family room. So it's a portion of the rear family room that's on the floor plan.
So there were no bedrooms back there in that addition?
It's called out as the family room in the floor plan. There was some discussion that it may have been utilized as an extra bedroom back in 1961, but I don't know that for certain.
Okay. I'm just going to mention that I really struggled. I'm still struggling with two of these requests tonight because to me they have a massive visual impact, especially the front elevation. And the Secretary of Interior standards say to avoid additions if you can make the new use fit into the existing structure. So that's why I was asking what was in that addition that was in the back. Because it does make a pretty large impact, especially, again, for me, especially the front elevation. And I actually had a question about the actual, in the municipal code, about the additions that are visible from the public right-of-way as opposed to ones that aren't. Another one of the projects in discussion tonight was on Elvira, and that one I can wholeheartedly endorse because nothing is visible from the public right-of-way. The front elevation remains completely unchanged, but the other two projects have a really big impact. And so because of those Secretary of Interior standards saying to avoid whenever possible adding to the structure if you can redesign the use with the existing structure, that's why I was kind of curious what was back there. And I didn't find it in the plans.
Right. It's a smaller family room that exists from that 1961 edition.
Okay. And the footprint of the back addition is going to be the same footprint as that 1961 addition, or is it expanding?
It's expanding.
Yeah.
It is expanding. Okay.
How long has the current family lived there?
I suspect, well, as Antonio said, we've been working with the owner for at least a couple of years. So at least that, maybe a little bit longer.
So they would have been aware at the time they purchased the property that it was a landmark house.
Right. And, the owner reached out to us because she had wanted to expand the property. And Antonio and I actually met her. This was pre-pandemic. We actually met her at her job site and walked the site with her and talked through the status of the property. So we had, and that's what we would do before COVID, is we actually met with her at her site and talked through it.
So what's your thoughts, AJ?
Oh, you're on mute, Chair.
Sorry, had a wife and child in the room for a moment. I have a lot of concerns, and some of which I think Commissioner Matsuno noted, which is just the look and preserving the look from the street. And this is a significant increase in size. And I do recognize, again, we've talked about this in the past, I've recognized the importance of allowing property owners flexibility. They are making investments not only in their homes, but in the community. But in this case, I have a lot of concerns.
I'm going to make another comment. And I feel like I have to make this comment in light of the next applicant. Because this particular property, the addition to me is still a significant visual impact. But the fact that there is a grade change for that back property, it's several feet lower than the original property, which means that the second story does not extend up vertically as much as if the entire property were on the same grade. Mitigates just slightly the visual impact. And again, I'm really torn with these two properties because in some sense my objections are the same. And I am always struggling with the desire to preserve the properties. And I think I've spoken about this. If we can let the homeowners of historic properties know that they can make fairly significant changes to their home, even after it's been landmarked, then that might save some properties from demolition. Because if they think they can't do anything, they might just decide, well, I'll tear it down and start new. So again, there's always this sort of dilemma. And so I'm kind of struggling with that. Now, I will say that if this was added to the house and then they came and requested the landmark status with that addition, I know there's a house around the corner from me on Garnett, and I talked to the owners because we were talking about the district, and the owner told me, oh, I requested my house to be a landmark, but because it has they covered the front porch, they said no. So a much smaller addition to the house was reason to deny the landmark. I think this might have happened before I was on the commission, but I just thought, we have to be kind of careful about that.
I'm the one that walked that property, first property. And I met with her, and it was heavily modified in a variety of ways.
Okay.
It's a great property.
Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, there is a staff recommendation to adopt a resolution by title only. Are there any members of the commission that would like to make a motion?
By title only? What does that mean?
So that, Stacey, you can enlighten us, but the title of the resolution is included within the presentation and the materials provided. Is there anything else that we...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it just means by title only, meaning that everything within the resolution and all the proposed conditions would all be approved in that motion. It's a question right now of whether or not any of the other commissioners share the concerns of the two that have stated, right? Maybe three. Yes, three. I've got you.
I don't see or hear a motion.
Oh,
So
yes.
This item would fail due to a lack of a motion. So one more chance if anybody would like to make that motion.
Hey, Chair, you do have a couple of options that the commission might want to entertain. One is that you can suggest revisions to the project and deny it without prejudice, meaning that the applicant can return back as soon as the revisions or the direction is taken, and bring a changes to the project back to the commission for reconsideration in lieu of just a simple denial. If there is a denial, we would need for you to make findings for denial that we would have to bring back in resolution form for adoption. And then the applicant wouldn't be able to apply with a similar project until at least a year from now. So those are a couple of things that the commission might want to consider in if the commission does not want to move forward on the staff's recommendation.
You also have the option, if I may, thank you, Antonio. You also have the option to consider conditions that would modify the project and reduce perhaps the height or the scale if there are elements that you think, measurable elements that could be modified that would make the project more agreeable. That's another route. And then the third option, so you have the items that Antonio mentioned. You could further condition the project for changes. You also have the option to continue the project to a future meeting and allow them the opportunity to make changes. And we don't have to design it for them. They've heard the comments tonight. The designer is here. He can take those comments and work on it and come back to a future public hearing.
Yes.
Well, hearing that, I would recommend that we continue the item and strongly urge the applicant to work with city staff on potential solutions here.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a motion?
Can I ask one more question, since that sounds like what we're about to do? For the addition on the extension, was it in the plan to redo the foundation anyways? Because if it's going up another story, I'm imagining that the footing has to be increased anyway, so they're going to be removing the old foundation?
No, I keep the foundation, keep the slab and provide a new foundation.
Okay, so the slab, but the footing...
Yeah, the slab is stayed.
Okay. So the recommendation to make recommendations would be the recommendations we would be working on in a future meeting?
Yes.
Right. So if you determine that you would like to continue this project to a future, to a date uncertain, right? Because we don't know when the revised project will be ready. Then it's up to the applicant to take all the comments heard this evening and make changes to hopefully address your comments.
Yes.
But the commission, do we have to make recommendations? No.
No, it's only if you were going to do an approval but condition the project for specific changes that you felt were easy and measurable. Say you wanted the building reduced in height by a certain amount. That's something that we as staff could administer later in the process. But it sounds like maybe it's bigger than that and they need to rethink some elements, right?
Before we have a vote on it, I would ask Stacy, in consideration of the points that were brought up, what made you be in favor of the plan?
Right. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is several versions later of a much larger project, and we felt that this was much closer to what would be appropriate for the project. And with the second story addition, approximately 35 feet behind the face of the building, we felt that maybe having it pushed further back down the property, that might help alleviate some of the two-story massing. However, it is completely up to this wonderful commission to make the determinations for these landmark homes. So we certainly support your thoughts and your input.
One thing I'll also mention is that I know those front elevations, the space gets compressed. So, and this is also regarding the next project under consideration, because this one, I think I calculated that the second story addition is 41 feet back from the front of the porch. So it's significantly set back, which that front elevation probably does not indicate. the front elevation, the drawing looks like it's right there. Sometimes I think it would be helpful to have sort of a 3D modeling to get a better idea of the visual impact. The other project I think I calculated was like 23 feet back, so about half the distance back. So the visual impact will be even more. But again, I think, and it's not really, I don't know if it's my place to make this recommendation, but it seems like if you're going to be tearing out the foundation anyways, if you could lower that grade another foot or two, and then I don't know if the ceiling heights and the roof heights can be reduced at all. Anything to just sort of reduce the impact of having the second story looming above the first.
If I may just ask a technical question to understand the couple of the choices in front of us that we have here. Regarding Antonio's first suggestion about rejecting this application without prejudice, if I understood that correctly, which basically allows the applicant to come back in front of the commission, versus Stacy's proposal about delaying it, or I don't know, continuing to discussing it. Which one of these options will take less of your time as the staff? Because I assume that we are going to be facing a lot of these situations, and I just want to make sure that we don't want to put you into a endless spiral of working with these type of applications. So is the first one basically rejecting it without prejudice a stronger message rather than let's continue with this? I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
No, that's a great question. It is a very strong message to any applicant. If a project is denied, it means that we are essentially saying that nothing can be retained and the project needs to be completely redesigned. If we continue the matter, then that means that there are elements that are good about the project, but that it needs to be further scaled or further reduced, especially since Commissioner Matsuno gave some ideas about ceiling heights, roof heights, looking at the grade. So they already have some ideas of what they could do at the next step. So it's just a question of whether or not you as a commission feel that the project needs to be denied and fully redesigned, or if we think that it could be modified in a few different ways and come back again later. It's a question of what works best for this commission. If we do a denial, staff will have to detail all the findings that you make tonight, and we'll have to come back later with a formal denial resolution. So as it relates to work for staff, it will be an extra step for us if we determine that a denial is most appropriate, but that is your decision.
Right, and if I could just add also, the continuance would indicate that the project has some merit, but needs some minor revisions or some not very substantial revisions that could be worked on with, providing the designer some direction as to what the commission would like to see. So that's obviously the easier process overall, the continuance.
So it sounds like we have two concepts that we are leaning towards. Is there a motion by the commission?
We would just move to either deny, continue, or approve. Is that the?
Yes.
Okay, I would make the motion that we continue.
And I'll second.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes, and that would be to a date uncertain.
Correct.
Because we don't know yet when the revised plans will be in. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno.
Yes.
Chair Caldwell.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll now enter into our second public hearing of the night. However, I do see a couple people that are here to speak on item J2 and J3. So why don't we administer the oath for everyone? Joe, if you could join us real quick. Hi. As well as Michael. If you could raise your right hand and affirm or take this oath. Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
We do.
We do.
Excellent. Terry and Craig and Ellen? Perfect. So with that, is there a motion to enter into a public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and additions to a locally designated landmark property, the Griffey House? Is there a motion?
I so move.
And a second?
I second it.
Any objections? Hearing none, and so ordered. And if we could have staff begin the presentation. Antonio?
Thank you, Chair. As you noted, this item is a certificate of appropriateness for alterations to the exterior of a locally designated landmark building. This building, trying to see if okay, here we go. This building is, like I said, a locally designated landmark building. The character defining features are Spanish colonial revival. The original structure, the original house, was built by Mr. Elmer Griffey, who owned an electrical supply business in Redondo Beach and actually had an unsuccessful run for what is now mayor of the city. So it's the Griffey House. The original garage was removed and replaced in 1977, and additions to the house were built in 1984 prior to the passing of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Now, the commission granted the property local landmark status on April 7th, 1993 as the Griffey House, and there was a certificate of appropriateness granted for additions to the garage in September of 99. The building is approximately 1,400 square feet in size right now on a 6,000 square foot lot, so give or so. The property is legal non-conforming in terms of the side yard setback. The nearest point to the west property line is at 2 feet 7 inches, and that's this bottom elevation here. And that comes into play later. This is the demo plan. It identifies the portions of the rear part of the house that would be removed to make way for the new addition, as well as the laundry room, nook, and bedroom that were added later, which would also be removed. The existing garage with the living area and the guest room would remain in place. There's a few things that would be removed. They're considered inappropriate alterations. These are the awnings and the vinyl railing that's shown here. There's going to be some of the windows would have to be removed, which are outlined in the red circle there. And there's a garden window in the kitchen that would also be removed. That was an alteration or addition that was done, which is not in keeping with the original style. From this red line back here, this is approximately where the building would be, portions of the building would be removed and where the addition would start. This is the floor plan for the proposed first floor. The patio is set back to comply with the required side yard setback of 4 foot 3 inches from the side property line. It's about 4 foot 3 inches. And then it's set back 5 feet from the east property line here. And that's our required setbacks. The rear setback is back here. The required setback is about 28 feet. This is beyond that. Let's see. The second story shows also where it would be placed at, offset from the original building at the required setback line here. And of course, it's just stacked on the top here where the addition would be. This is the roof plan. It shows a couple of the alterations are some skylights on the flat roof, which is existing, but these wouldn't be visible. So it's not considered a substantial change. These are the elevations, the proposed elevations for the property. This is the option 1. This is option 2. You can see from here, this is the existing elevation. That's with the non-conforming setback, and then the addition, which is offset towards the back to comply with the required side yard setback from the west property line. Let's see. So the architects did work with staff in designing it. Let me go back to this. And we did some revisions. We looked at the roof design and tried to mimic the slope that you see here in the front. We had some changes to these windows to try and break up this vertical massing. We worked with them to lower the floor to ceiling plate heights to get this roof down and lower in scale. So it didn't look so massive or substantial behind the building. So these are things that we worked with the architect on. They were amenable to all of these changes. There was a couple of other minor changes that they did to some of the decks and the roof decks here, the above, to try and keep more in style with the original architecture. And so, like I said, we've had a back and forth with this applicant as well, or at least the architects, but not as lengthy as the other project. So again, this kind of the way that they've designed it is consistent with the design vocabulary, and it does carry over the architecture to all 4 sides. The character defining features of the landmark property, which are the flat roof with the coping, the mansard style roof with the gable that's facing forward, the arch window at the front, and the porch entryway. All of these items will all remain, as well as the stucco cladding and the wood double hung windows. We've asked that for the new addition, that there be some differentiation. They're going to be using casement windows for that addition to show a distinction between the new and the old. The stucco is a textured stucco. When they do the addition, likely it would be a different finish, and you'll be able to tell the difference between the two, between the new and the old. And that ties back to the Secretary of Interior standards. And one of the items that the commission does have to take a look at and make findings for. So again, the proposed project keeps these features, and the new addition would be in keeping with the style. It harmonizes the new and old, but differentiates the existing building from the new. The house would be compatible with the surroundings and continue to contribute towards the potential historic district. It's not a historic district now, but we feel that it would still continue to be a contributor to that, to the Clifton by the Sea district, the potential district there. Again, staff's recommendation here is that the commission open the public hearing, accept public testimony. and adopt the resolution for approval for the project. Like I said, the addition is in a position that's secondary to the house, and the design is compatible and complementary to it. This is kind of the proposed. I understand Commissioner's hesitancy or with when you look at an elevation like this, it is two-dimensional. It does make it look like a substantially larger building. But when you consider this and you consider the context of what's out there existing, you see the building from a different perspective. It's on a kind of on a berm. It's higher up. The addition would be placed towards the rear, so it doesn't have as a substantial visual impact as this would suggest. And with that, again, a recommendation is to adopt a resolution for approval and grant the certificate of appropriateness for the exterior alterations to the Griffey house. I know we received the objection, the e-comment that was provided to the commission beforehand. And I think we have the neighbor that would want to speak about the proposed project. As was outlined in the staff report, the project would avail itself of a density bonus for the size of the building that they're proposing. And that's not uncommon. It's pretty much granted to other projects, other single family homes in this area. And with that, I can answer any questions. Like I said, we have the architects and the property owners that can chime in and give you any other background or details that I didn't cover in my presentation.
No, thank you very much, Antonio. And now would be the time to receive public input. If we could have the applicant, if you'd like to say anything, or if you're a designer.
Yes, so we are the architect representing Craig and Ellen Pollock here, and thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it. First thing we want to say is how important to us and the client, I'm sure they're going to reiterate this as well, how important it is for us to preserve the history of this home. And we really appreciate Antonio's assistant. In fact, the whole staff, we appreciate all of their assistance with helping us do that, because it does matter to us. It makes as architects who care about history, it means a lot to us. So wanted to start with that. If it's all right, I'm going to present my screen here because I wanted to show a few things.
You guys see an elevation of the house, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
They should. You see they do see the elevation of the house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So as Antonio was pointing out, looking at this elevation right here, it does appear to be this solid mass that's right at the front of the street. And which is why what we would like to do is present a kind of a 3D here to show you what it actually looks like from the street. So this is standing right in front of the house right here. And you can see as we kind of, and this is all correct from a grading standpoint and everything that shows that the house is actually higher than the street. And yes, you can see part of the rear house that's poking up from the back. But the reality is what's front and center is the historic portion of the house. And we feel that that's what's most important. That is what is really seen as you drive down the street right here. And although you do see the addition, we believe that, again, it helps complement, right? So basically we have kept with the addition, we have tried to keep similar aperture sizes. So you can see here, we have these small windows here in the front. We have this small opening in the front. We have the small opening in here. And what we've done with the addition in the rear, if I can fly up to a view that no one would ever see, by the way, but if we can kind of fly up to see what that would look like, the rear addition has these smaller apertures here. And thank you again, Antonio, for helping us kind of create this. We had started with something that was a bit bigger from a window standpoint here, and we have since reduced it in order to make it more in keeping, again, with the history of the home in front. Now, the windows also in the back on the second story, we have kept to smaller sizes. Originally, when we were first designing, we had thought, well, what about much, much larger windows in the back? And then, we kind of went back to, no, I don't think that makes sense, because we wanted, again, to complement the history in the original front home here. As Antonio was mentioning, we removed the awnings and some of the old vinyl fences and some of those kind of materials that were not part of the original home, that were added probably, I would imagine, without permit since the original home was approved. And in fact, since it was made historical. We are below the maximum height. So you can see here, this is where the maximum height here is, which is at 128.46 feet. Before, we had actually gone all the way down to 126.7. And again, per Antonio's suggestion and request, we reduced it another foot in order to sink it a little bit more. We are hesitant to reduce the back here and actually sink it into the ground, because our clients would like to age in this home, and being able to, in potential future, being able to kind of walk straight out without the need for any sort of assistance down some steps would be ideal in order to be able to utilize that backyard.
Okay.
But, and before you add to it, yes, what we have done to mitigate that, however, knowing that we wanted to keep that kind of walking straight from inside to outside, again, because of the aging in place issue, we reduced the heights. You can see here, there are a few feet here between where the house could be and where we've placed it. Go ahead, Eileen.
And then when Joe was mentioning keeping all of the floor level the same, although the floor plan looks like we're removing quite a few of the walls on the ground floor, those are almost exclusively interior walls. We are keeping the entire existing floor, and we're just filling in a corner where our new proposed kitchen is and where the stair is on the side where the driveway is. And the only addition sort of back on the ground floor is porch. And the existing home has very tall ceilings. So to have the upper floor have super short ceilings would not sort of match the language of the home.
Now, another thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is right here. The only larger openings that we have are towards the back that are not towards the street, and they are hidden within the covered porch. So I'm going to show that right now here. I'm going to go around the back here. So they are hidden within the covered porch here. So the vantage point from anywhere, any of the neighbors, from anywhere is going, even from either side. Well, first of all, this house is way up here, so they wouldn't even be able to see it. But if there were a house to be back here, it would still be very difficult to see any of those large openings. And we did that on purpose, again, in order to try and keep within the history. Any exposed windows are smaller apertures, the ones that would be seen. And then the windows on the side, we only removed the ones on the side that were, or we only moved the ones on the side that were necessary for emergency egress. So what was required, what will be required for the building department.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So what will be required for the building department is what we're anticipating. But go ahead.
They'll be slightly wider, but those will match the style of the existing one. The front one is going to be an existing window to remain, and it is the wood window. And so those two on the side there are slightly wider for egress purposes for bedrooms, but they would match the style of the existing one.
So, and there has been quite a bit of work done between our firm and the client and Antonio in order to prepare for this meeting. We have gone back and forth quite a bit in order to make sure that we all agree that this is going to be the least impactful way to get the square footage that our client and their family need in order to be able to live in this space. It is currently a small house for the area. And I think our clients can talk a bit more about that and their family needs. But before I do, Eileen, you have one more thought.
We should look at the back options.
Okay, yeah. So we do have two options that we'd like to run by you here. So we have this larger opening here, again, which is our preference. It can't really be seen from anywhere from a public eye. It can't be seen from the front driving by. It can't be seen from anywhere there. We are hoping to be able to have this opening because the alternative, which would be something like this, where you would have two arches. The problem with this is we think it doesn't look as good as it could possibly look, number one. And number two, this column would really need to be centered between the doors right here. And in order to do that, it throws the building off center. You can see there's more wall here than there is on this side. And that's because we actually had to step the building in because the old building is not in compliance with the setback, whereas the new building would have to step in order to comply with the setback. So we're hoping that you would accept this this opening because then it could appear more symmetrical on the rear facade, if that makes sense.
Because that post between the two doors is not centered on the arch, but it's kind of, they're separate enough and different enough that it doesn't look out of balance.
Because of the size.
And once we have to make it two arches, it becomes really obvious that it's not symmetrical.
And with that, we would love to turn it over to Craig and Ellen for them to speak a little bit.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to speak here. Thanks, Joe. That was great. So I'm Craig Pollock. This is my wife, Ellen Pollock, and we're really excited by the opportunity here and really appreciate your time. And certainly Stacy and Antonio have been great in working with Joe and our team. And I know that we've spent a lot of time going back and forth, but our goal is to maintain the historical perspective of the property and at the same time, meet our family needs. To give you a little bit of background, currently we're living in Calabasas. We've lived here for the last 25, 30 years, what have you. And so the story is that Ellen's parents bought the home back in 1980-ish, and they were the ones who landmarked it. Ellen's parents passed away about 4 years ago, and we have all of our family is in the South Bay. So we have a pretty large extended family, both on Ellen's side and my side. So we have, like I said, we have a lot of visits to the South Bay right now. And so our goal is to move down to the South Bay and live in her parents' home, but make it our home. So this is our forever home. This is what we're looking to retire in. This is what we're looking with actually everything that happened to speed up our retirement and be able to work remotely and work. But the important thing for us is we have 3 kids in college right now, and all 3 of them are going to be moving back home. And so we need more space than the current existing structure provides for us. So that's really the big driver for us, is having a home that we can all be in. still maintain the historical perspective. And I think Joe and Eileen have done a wonderful job with that. And hopefully you guys agree, but that's really the driver for us is having our family, being a valued member of the Redondo Beach community and calling it home. So that's what we're looking to achieve here. Certainly open to any questions or anything that you guys would like to ask.
Before we do that, are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
Yes, we do have one member of the public signed up to comment, Dan Marshall. Dan, if you can go ahead and unmute.
There we go.
Oh, okay. Hi there. Hi there. Yes, go ahead. You guys have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, our biggest concern is not necessarily the look from the front of the property as far as maintaining historical. It is somewhat, to us, a very large addition, but we spend a lot of time in our backyard. And so with this 2-story addition, it actually allows that property to look right down in our backyard, which in a sense, we lose that property, that privacy altogether. And so that's one of my biggest concerns. The second one is the setback on the new addition on the driveway. A lot of these older homes only had about a 2-foot setback on the property line, whereas now it's 5. So right now we're about 11 feet approximately from that property, and it goes all the way back. Now it's going to be about 7 feet. And that side of the house is where all of our bedrooms are. So it creates a potential noise issue as well as a privacy issue. Again, going back to the backyard, once they build that second story, the sunlight coming in our backyard in the evening, we will not get that anymore. That'll be gone at a certain time. And seeing that the property is set so far back compared to other properties that are being done, it almost takes care of our entire backyard up to our garage where we have that massive structure there. And to me, it doesn't fit into the guidelines of a historical property by doing something like that. That being said, I did notice something they said earlier about the setback on the opposite side, whereas the old addition is being renovated and it's still at a 2 feet setback. Is that okay, or should it be 5 feet since it is a new addition? The other part of the backyard issue is that once they build that structure, we'll have a lot more noise coming into our backyard because of PCH generates a lot of noise. And so now our backyard will be subject to a lot of noise bouncing off that property. And so I understand, everybody wants to have their forever home. And it's fine. I think everybody has that privilege. But to me, it doesn't really fall into the guidelines of a historic home anymore. It may look that way from the front, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose of signing up for that and being on the register to put something that massive on a home like that. And so to me, it says, what's the point of being historic if you're going to do that? So, so what else do I have? Well, those are the main things. It's just the loss of privacy in the backyard. It's just one of those things. And what was the other question I had?
You have about 15 seconds left.
Okay. All right. And does the style of the house meet the architectural guidelines? And I had thought that the area was an actual historic district. And so I may be wrong in that regard, but I thought it was still part of the historical district there and doesn't meet the guidelines within there.
And that's 3 minutes.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you very much, Dan. Before we entertain a motion to close the public participation, does any member of the commission have any questions of the applicant or the designer?
Yeah, there. Can I actually interject real quick here?
Yes.
A couple of things I wanted to make note of. So the neighbor asked about the setbacks, the non-conforming setback. There is a provision in the zoning code that allows you to do additions so long as it's within 10% of the lot width, which is compliant. That's why they didn't stack the addition on that one side that's non-conforming. They had it set back. So that's within the code. The 5-foot setback off of the east property line, that's also within code. In regards to the potential privacy impacts, I want to note that the design is thoughtful in how they positioned the closet and the laundry on that east side with a minimal number of window openings. And so that reduces the ability to actually look over into the yard area. The roof deck is positioned towards the front so that it avoids any people looking over, standing at the deck and looking over into the neighbors' yards. So those are all very thoughtful aspects of the design. In many cases, we would suggest that there be high window sill heights, but that wasn't, in my review of the project, I didn't think that was necessary. There is a rather large window on the back off the bathtub, and that was something that I had commented on. And I said, do the owners really want that? Because we're going to require that the windows be opaque so that you can't see in and out. And so I had asked the architect about that specifically, but they said that they assured me that is a design aspect that the owners wanted. So I may not want that, but to each his own. So that's a couple of things on the design aspect. The property, it is one of many properties that do contribute to a potential historic district. I still continue to advocate that, and I think Stacy would see her nodding her head. I'm always, this is my constant thing about these neighborhoods, the lower avenues, the Clifton by the Sea and Clifton Heights. I really like the charm and the style of the homes in the area, and I think it'd be wonderful if the neighbors could all agree to form a historic district to help preserve that area the way that it is now. But we don't have that at the moment. It would require unanimous consent by the neighbors. So just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. And again, I'm available for any other questions or comments. I'm sure that the architect would also, if there's questions, that they could also respond to that.
And may I respond also and add a little bit, if that's okay?
Hang on just a minute. Let me.
No problem.
Let's see if the commissioner has questions for you directly.
Was there much discussion or interaction between the neighbors prior to this project being, developed and gotten to where it is now?
Craig, you're on mute.
Okay.
I can take that. Okay. Yeah. Hi. So since my dad passed away and we've been renting the house, I keep the neighbors on both sides of the house. I text them updates about tenants or any activity going on around the house. And they also on both sides have been aware that we have been planning to retire here and make it our forever home. We made that clear as soon as my dad passed away. And then when we hired Joe, we let them know we were beginning the plans. And then when we were getting ready to get on the agenda here, we went and visited them in person, both neighbors on the both sides, and Grant on the other side signed that he is supportive. And then we spoke to the neighbor across the street again, because he would be the one actually looking more directly at the house, and he expressed his support. But as Dan said, I know he and his wife said to us that they very much appreciated us coming over and sharing that with us, but they did express the concern. And they expressed the concern about privacy, and we did talk to them about how there really wasn't any view from us into their backyard, but they did express that concern. And
Again, I have a second question. What is the size difference between square footage of what it is now and what it would be with the addition?
Eileen is looking that up as we speak.
Yeah, so the original house is 1,400 square feet. And again, on the ground floor, we added 500. And the second floor is 1,092. So it's a total of about 1,600 square feet. But we filled in the corner on the ground floor. And then again, the second story is all pushed back as far as we could in order to reduce the bulk. And the stair tower is like 1.5 stories so that it comes down to the first floor at the front to sort of, minimize it as much as possible.
So total now would be about 2,600 square feet?
I think it's 14 plus 3,023. And that includes their home offices because they will be working remotely as before they retire and their children will be home.
On a follow-up question on David's question, is there a guideline either in the work of this, in the previous work of this commission or by the Secretary of the Interior about the percentage of increase in a landmark building, which is acceptable? I mean, here we are pretty much, what would the percentage be? By how many percentage are we increasing the size of the landmark building?
Yes, Commissioner Taylor, there is not a definitive percentage, but what it does talk about is a retention of the character defining features of the majority of the building, the existing building. And so in many of these cases, how we advise the applicants or the property owners is that if you want to make changes to the building, you'll have to keep it to the rear portion of the property. And so that you maintain the majority of what's existing today. But the key is the not doing changes that would substantially damage or take away the character defining features of the home, of the historic resource. That's the key thing that you look at. And I wanted to kind of touch on something that was commented or asked about earlier.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Absolutely.
I understand that fully, but specifically my question. So as far as you know, or you tell me, there is no guideline anywhere as to the percentage of the existing building and an addition. Is that correct?
Well, like I said, we usually say that to keep the majority of the building, the existing building, intact. Not that you can't double the size or go over more than half of the size of the existing building, because in many cases, there's plenty of space to add a substantial amount of square footage to the building and not adversely affect it. So that's kind of the key here, is in looking at this, you have to evaluate or you have to judge whether you think that this addition is substantially adverse to the resource or not. And then again, I was just going to comment about how the county assessors looks at these items. There's a couple of things that they look at, and one is the improvements and like the land value and the improvements. And they have a very complex calculation as to how they look at the site itself and then what the assessed rate is. And that ties into the Mills Act contract. So that's separate. It's not like they would get a tax break on the entire property because they're maintaining only a portion of it. So that's where that judgment comes in. So I don't know if that's a concern that the commission has, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that slightly.
I personally think it should be a concern of a commission, right? I mean, would my fellow commissioners agree?
Can I make 2 points? I don't know if this is the time to do it or after the public. But I don't know.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Yes.
maybe if we just quickly, if there are any questions for the designer or for the applicant, maybe we could ask those questions, and then that way it'll allow us to close the public portion, public participation portion, and then we could focus in on commissioner comments and or questions of staff. Were any of your points or questions related to the applicant or the architect?
I just have one last question. Based on what you said and Pollock said, there is Mr. Marshall and his wife the only ones that are ardently opposed to the project?
As far as we're aware, yes.
I spoke to the total of 3 neighbors, so the other 2 were very supportive.
Okay.
Yeah, just to reiterate, the general consensus around there is everyone seems to be in favor of this.
Are there any additional comments or questions for the applicant or the architect here from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, and with the understanding that all those that came have had the opportunity to participate, is there a motion to close the public participation portion?
I'll make that motion to close public participation.
Is there a second? Are there any objections? Hearing none, so ordered. And now we'll begin with our discussion. And we'll throw it over Commissioner Matsuno. I apologize for interrupting you earlier. But if you have any comments, questions of staff, we can go ahead and take those now.
Yeah, I'm going to make a couple of points, and I have a feeling that the applicants and the architects will respond. And also, this is welcome, Orhan. I've never met you or any. There's a couple new commissioners here, so welcome. A couple things that I hope you got. One is the municipal code relating to the Preservation Commission. Hope you guys got that. And then the other one was this, the design guidelines. Did you guys get that one too? Okay. Hopefully they can get a copy of that. In the municipal code, it says that the criteria for approval of certificates of appropriateness for other than demolition or removal, in the case of a landmark, the proposed work other than demolition or removal, number 1, conforms to the prescriptive standards adopted by the commission. And I would assume that was the design guidelines. The guidelines for new construction, the very first item is scale and massing. And it says the overall size and height of the new building should be consistent with the surrounding buildings. And just like the previous project, I don't feel that has been done. All the other buildings for the whole block until all the way down, and I believe the one way down at the end of the block is what they call an airplane bungalow, where the second story was original. But all the other houses are all one-story houses. So that's my first point. The second point, again, goes back to the Secretary of Interior standards. And for Orhan and the new commissioners, it's online. You just look at it. It's called standards. Let me see. But you can find it, Secretary of Interior's standards for treatment of historic properties. And that has the guidelines that we're kind of meant to follow. And again, like I mentioned in the previous application, the standards say that all effort must be made to adapt the new use or the modified use to the existing structure without adding on to it. And one of the things that, and again, I know I'm tonight, I'm kind of like the party pooper, but I kind of looked at the square footage of the garage, and there's a living space attached to the garage. There's also the addition on the first story. So without going up the second story, a lot of the historic properties that we've approved have added second stories above the garage, because that's sort of the accessory property and it's not the actual landmark. So I kind of calculated if you added a second story above the garage plus the addition to the first story, you would gain 1,257 square feet as opposed to the 1,600 square feet you gain by adding the second story. So again, because the Secretary of Interior standards, the first thing that they sort of emphasize is try to work with the structure you have. And if you want to do an addition, do it to accessory structure. And what I appreciate what you said about you're growing the family, and I don't know about you, but I have a teenage daughter. She would much rather have her visiting quarters separate from the main house. But I just think that, again, and this is going to what I read in the Marshal's letter, that if we're really trying to adhere to these standards, then there might be other solutions.
Commissioner Matsuno, if I could just kind of respond real quick to that.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that, there would be removing a portion of the building that was built, I think it was in the 80s, and then adding or changing that portion in the back. So some of that was original to the house is actually not original or was added to the house. But more importantly, in regards to doing additions over the garage, we actually don't allow that. There's a height limit. So we don't allow 2-story garages anymore in that neighborhood. I know that there's a lot of properties that do have that, but that would involve having to process a variance. And it would be very difficult for us to make the findings or bring a recommendation for a historic variance or something like that here. So I would advise against that.
Okay, when did they change, or is it by the actual street? Because I know we've done that for properties on Catalina recently.
It depends on the zoning, but in particular in the single family residential zone, accessory structures are limited to 15, 16 feet in height, depending on what you do with this, what's the use for the structure. In this case, it'd be 16 feet. You can't get 2 stories in 16 feet. So that's kind of the hurdle that they face there. Like I said, I know that there's a lot of other properties that do have 2-story structures in the back. Those are all legal non-conforming at this point. And there was I want to say there was we had advocated to allow 2-story accessory structures, in particular accessory dwelling units, and the council went against the staff recommendation. So that's kind of the background with that. I did want to point out, though, there about the Secretary of Interior standards. There are the 10 different criteria. I highlighted 4 criteria in the staff report that are the most applicable here, and that's that the historic character of the property will be retained and preserved. That's number 2. Number 5, that the distinctive materials, features, and finishes and craftsmanship that characterize the property shall be preserved, and we feel that that's happening here. The new additions and alterations shall not destroy the historic materials that characterize the property, and that the new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features, and protect the historic integrity of the property and the environment. And we think that the project adheres to that as well. And that the construction will be undertaken in a manner that's going to protect and keep the integrity of the historic property and not impair it. And like I said, those are the 4 criteria of the federal standards that I highlighted in the staff report. And that's the reason why we support the project, because we think it meets all four of those criteria.
Can I talk about the scale in the rest of the street? Because there are lots of two-story buildings that are massive. Like right across the street, there are two of them. I have a street view pulled up, and I can show them to you. They're quite large, and so this is, as far as scale being consistent with other buildings in the area, it's definitely consistent with the street.
Yeah, Joe, I don't think that's necessary at this point.
Okay.
I just wanted to address Commissioner Matsuno's questions. We've actually closed the public hearing, so unless the director, we'll let the commission deliberate.
I'm just gonna respond to the architect's observation, and I feel like the Historic Preservation Commission, in trying to maintain the historic character of the neighborhoods, the two-story buildings that he was referring to are sort of I'm going to say the aberrations on that street. Originally the street, except again with that airplane bungalow down at the end, they were probably all one story. There's one other one near the airplane bungalow where I'm not sure if the second story was added. But some of the large, massive buildings are kind of the buildings that I joined the Preservation Commission in response to, I guess.
Would any other commissioner have any questions, comments?
Overall, I do have the same concerns. I brought them up about the size and everything. I do think that the design that was put forward is quite good. I like the way the 3D model was presented. In any project that's done, you're never going to be able to please everyone around you, particularly in Redondo Beach. And I think that unlike the first one that we looked at, which was a massive change, this project looked like it did have the character of the period, and obviously was very updated, but I think that that we should not be quite as harsh on this issue as we were on the other one. I mean, I do like the design that was shown.
Yeah, I like the design, the details, and the proportions and everything was nice, but I just feel that it's a historic property.
Commissioner Tainer, did you have any comments?
Yeah, just very briefly. I also very much appreciate the very professional design and presentation, and also very candid participation by the owners. Thank you to both of them. I also very much appreciate the input from the marshals. A very nice and kindly written email comment, as well as again a very nice 3-minute comment today. I don't think it's actually the Preservation Commission's responsibility to look into the concerns of a neighbor unless it's related to the preservation of the building, the historic landmark aspect of it. Having said that, I think it's extremely important for neighbors to be happy in general. So I very much appreciate their concern, especially when it comes to the privacy and the sunlight that they would be lacking or not getting. In summary, as Commissioner Jackson said, I am less harsh on this one, but I also think that having listened to the marshals and Commissioner Matsuno's comments, as well as some of the comments that we made, I would prefer probably for the architects and the owners to take them in and maybe do some minor revisions and come back to us next time around. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Commissioner Galassi, did you have any comments or questions?
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Initially when I looked at the plans before our meeting this evening, I will admit that, it was kind of, it seemed like an overwhelming addition, because when it's a flat image like that, it really doesn't give you the perspective that the 3D model that Joe provided this evening shows us. So for me, I think I'll say that the biggest change in my mind was the perspective that he gave us from the ground level at the street. So if you're standing on the street and you're looking at the house, it's completely different than that flat image. And it appears that the roof line is not nearly as gargantuan as it seems on paper. That said, I do appreciate the concern that my other fellow commissioners have in the overall size of the home, because the rest of it is clearly behind. And it's more than doubling the original size of the house. So I do appreciate that. And I likewise thank Mr. Marshall for his concerns. I appreciate his concerns about light. That's a big deal when you're living in a crowded area such as we live in Redondo Beach. So I thank Mr. Marshall for providing us his perspective on that. So those are my comments.
And I'll close by maybe just echoing some of the comments that have been made. I greatly appreciate the design features of maintaining the look and the existing structure to the extent that you were able to do. And it does kind of change my mind about the project when I saw the original design. I've long been one to say that I want to preserve the look of our community. I want to preserve the homes and the style of the beach cities. However, I do recognize the community that we live in, and the desire. It's a competing interest. If you want to keep certain aspects of those homes, you have to offer flexibility to homeowners to basically invest in those rather than simply tear them down. And I think that there are certain circumstances that we'll be faced with down the road where we're trying to entice or dangle this carrot to get people to register their homes and to maintain and preserve them. And people are going to see that the negative aspect of that is just too much. And that's my biggest concern. And I struggle with that. I'll be honest, for the years that I've been on this commission, that's always been a concern of mine. I don't know if it's ever taken place in one commission meeting twice like it has tonight. So I think that as is, I am supportive of the application, but obviously I'm just one person. So with that, I would entertain a motion. We do have a staff recommendation. However, as we saw in the last one, there are several options available to the commission. So if there's a member of the commission that would like to make a motion, please do so now.
I'd like to move that the applicant and the architects rebring this application to our next meeting, and then take the discussions today into consideration.
And Commissioner Tanner, would you accept maybe a friendly amendment to that motion? If we were going to continue it, which is, I believe, what you were suggesting, maybe we should do something similar to what we did in our previous meeting, which would be to continue it to a future meeting, maybe not the next specific one, because that would allow the applicant and or the architect for additional time rather than just kind of forcing it back at the next meeting. If we were to do it at a meeting of their choosing, working with staff, that provides a little bit more flexibility.
I would agree, Chair, but having said that, I think, some of the revisions are actually much more minor compared to the previous case. So, and I understand, having met the owners and understanding their plans, there may be in a, time constraint. So I don't want to stall their efforts. If the language calls for to the future, that's perfectly fine. But as a commissioner, I would be more than happy to re-entertain it in 2 months' time.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Before we take the vote, I just want to reiterate that one of the options that the commission does have is to approve it with conditions if there's specific things that you would like to see changed. And so if they're with greater specificity, greater clarity, that would always help. And so I just wanted to point that out because I don't think I might be missing it, but I haven't heard anything specific as to what the direction should be to the architects for revisions. So with that, I just wanted to chime in on that. Excuse me.
Commissioner and Gardia, are we able to have competing motions on this?
Well, you can have a second motion that would supersede the first motion, and then you can take a vote on that and then return back to the original motion.
Is there an alternate motion?
Well, I think that I kind of share the chair's opinion of that we really want to preserve as much of the city as we possibly can. I think they've done a really good job in trying to design this. I do understand Mr. Marshall's and Mrs. Marshall's issues, but I think that they've shown that they've tried to take those things into consideration, and I would move to approve the staff recommendation.
Is there a second? I'll make the second. If we could have a roll call vote.
Of course. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
No.
Commissioner Matsuno.
No.
Chair Caldwell.
Yes.
Okay, so then the motion passes.
And thank you all for the comments and, to staff's point, I feel very comfortable in the future sending, after the public hearing, sending items back or providing feedback. It is important that if we are going to do that, we should provide some pretty good feedback so that they know if or when there are potential remedies to bring it back. And so keep that in mind. to the members of the commission that when we make those recommendations and we talk about our thoughts, how can we fix things or how can we remedy them? So I think that's important. Moving on, we do have our next item, which is J3. That is an additional public hearing.
Congratulations.
Thank you all very much again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe all those that intend to participate in this next public hearing, were they all sworn in or did their oath?
I think Mike did. Terry, did you guys do the oath? Yes?
We did.
Yes, we did.
Okay, great.
Then this is again the time to enter into a motion for an open hearing, a public open hearing for item J3. Is there a motion to open that public hearing?
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any objections? Hearing none, so ordered. We do have, I believe Stacy will be doing a presentation on this item.
Yes. As soon as it wants to go. Here we go. Okay. This is landmark designation and certificate of appropriateness for the property at 719 Elvira Avenue. The property is located on the west side of Elvira, just north of Nob Hill Avenue. The neighborhood is zoned R2 multifamily residential, and the lot is approximately 7,500 square feet in size. This property is listed in the city survey as a B-rated craftsman built back in 1924. If you went by the property, you probably saw that the rear garage and ADU, were recently constructed and they're finishing up the work now. The main character defining features for this wonderful craftsman property is horizontal wood siding. You've got the single double hung windows with trim, the gable roofs with exposed rafter ends, and of course that full width covered entry porch with posts. There's also brick accents at the site along the base of the porch, the base of the porch posts, and there is a brick chimney on the southern elevation. The new garage and workshop with the accessory dwelling unit above it were approved last year. And as you can see that they have, if you went by the site, you saw that there are similar style details such as the horizontal siding and double hung windows. State legislation mandates that accessory dwelling units be administratively reviewed. Thus, we as staff had to review it last year, of course, with the community development director and verify that it would not detrimentally affect the potentially historic home out front. And then the property adjacent to this at 717 is also locally designated. Here's the front of the property. You can see that full width front entry porch. You can see these wonderful brick porch posts with the tapered wood posts above, double hung windows. Unlike the other property on Alberta, these gables are side to side gables. And then here's the some of the additional brickwork. Here's that brick chimney along the driveway. Back here, you can see the new garage and the accessory dwelling unit above. And then you can see that most of the original elements of the home are still intact. It has great bones, as we would say. All the exterior materials are there. And then this is the other side. And you can see all these great double hung windows along the side. One element that will be removed are the shutters. Shutters are not a traditional craftsman design feature. We think these were added later to the site. So those will be omitted. So no new square footage will be added to the first floor. They'll be opening up the great room, creating a larger space. family space, and then a new dining and kitchen space towards the rear of that first floor. And then there will be a new rear covered porch, which will also be the full width of the building, very similar to the front porch that exists out there today. Rear second floor addition will be 334 square feet. This will be able to create a master suite, and then the existing den will be expanded westward, and that will become a new bedroom. This new west-facing gable roof will be below the existing roof, thus it will not be visible from the street. This already being a two-story home, we aren't faced with the same issues of the two previous applications. Of course, there will be horizontal siding at the addition, and it will be slightly larger than the original siding on the home. The original siding on the home is 3 inches in width. The plans propose 4-inch in width siding. I mentioned the removal of the shutters, which is not a traditional Craftsman design feature. There are various window and door improvements on the elevations, and we will talk through that a little bit more in a moment. As you saw, the property needs a lot of love. So any damaged siding or trim on the existing home will have like-for-like wood replacements. And that's per the Secretary of Interior standards. And then they'll be probably doing upgrades to the foundation as well as structural upgrades, which they will work through those details. If approved tonight, they'll work through those details in the plan check process with the building division. They're also proposing new paint colors. So they've got the siding, they're looking to do Nantucket Dune. It's Sherwin-Williams. For the front door, they're hoping to do Lemon Verbena, also Sherwin-Williams, and then all of the trim will be white. And then there is a special request within the Certificate of Appropriateness application, and that's to consider the use of fiber cement lap siding on the rear addition only, which will not be visible from the street. And then also they would like to consider utilizing fiberglass openings on the rear elevation, and I'll show you that in a moment. So here are our elevations. Down here, we've got the front east elevation. The majority of the front elevation will remain intact. The only element that will be modified is this is into the guest bedroom. This will be a new window in lieu of the doors that exit from the bedroom to the front entry porch. And this picture window will be very similar to the existing picture window on the opposite side of this front elevation. So this elevation will stay mostly intact. Here we have the side elevation. This is the south elevation, and this is the outline of the existing home here. You've got that brick chimney. Here's the existing front porch with the brick posts. They will be restoring these two original windows. Those had been removed at some point in time. And when you go out to the site, I had walked the site last year. You can see the outline of these windows because the siding does not perfectly match up. So they will be restoring that for wood double hung windows there. These second story windows will remain. These the side lights to this existing picture window will be removed. And then this window, this is a utility room that will be modified. This will be the new dining space on the inside. Here you can see the side view of that new rear porch. And then this whole gable element along here, this is all the addition, that 334 square feet up top. And you can see the new ridge connecting just behind the existing ridge down below. And then as we get to the rear elevation, you get the full view of that full width covered porch. This is the addition area here. This is the new gable. This is the area that they're proposing the fiber cement lap siding with a wood-like finish. They're also proposing that the windows here and these new windows, this door and these windows, that those all be fiberglass. So that's something that the commission has to consider tonight. And then let's look at the north elevation here. The majority of the north elevation outline remains intact. Most of the windows remain intact. We've got one window here that will be the new kitchen space that will be omitted. And then this is actually a bathroom. So they're going to reduce the size of this window here. And then again, you can see the profile of the second story addition here below the main ridge line. And then that will sit on top of this new rear porch element. So talking through the Secretary of Interior standards, the site was constructed as a residential use. It will remain a residential use. The distinctive features and materials of the original home will be preserved as part of this project. This addition is specifically behind and subordinate to the existing two-story home. And technically in the future, you could remove this addition and the home would still maintain its integrity. The new siding will be slightly wider than the original. It's proposed at 4 inches in width versus the 3-inch narrow siding on the existing home. For the elements that are in disrepair, they are looking to restore existing siding like for like on the original home. And overall, the form and integrity of the original home will remain intact. Overall, the essential elements of this craftsman home will remain, and the small addition off the back will not detrimentally alter the original home. The property meets the side setbacks, 5-foot side setback, and then also it's setback along the driveway for driveway access to the new garage. Outdoor living space far exceeds the 800 square feet that's required. That whole rear yard is still intact. And then the building height is well below the 30-foot maximum limit. They're also requesting landmark designation. The property was developed in 1924. It is a classic craftsman in design. It has all of the wonderful craftsman features. It's listed as a B rated, quite frankly, because it has so many wonderful elements and it's remained intact. I suspect it could even be considered an A-rated structure. The only work that's been done to the site was in 1994, and that's the re-roof and the new water heater. Obviously, we've got the garage and the ADU project that was approved and is almost fully constructed now at the site. The original permits were issued to Thomas B. Whiteside and the Redondo Reflex. He's listed as one of the first settlers of the city. He was a conductor on a Santa Fe train. He was a trustee for the Redondo Union High School Board. And there are several articles in the Redondo Reflex showing that he and his wife were very active within the community in general. It doesn't look like they actually resided at the residence. They're not listed in the city directories, but there are a variety of residents that did live there. None of them are of note, but I did search through the newspapers and there were no significant features on any of them. But we do consider this property to be both architecturally significant as well as significant for the connection to the Whiteside family. I do have some suggested conditions for us to consider tonight. The top two are conditions that are already included in the draft resolution. It's that all exterior materials on the original historic home shall remain wood, and any features that are in disrepair shall be replaced with wood like for like in design. That the new westward gable roof element shall have exposed rafter ends with a similar design as the existing rafter ends. So those are the two main conditions that we should consider if you determine that this project is approvable. As it relates to the alternative materials, I do have some optional conditions. If you think the alternative materials are appropriate, it's the fiberglass windows on the rear elevation, as well as the fiber cement lap siding on the addition space itself. I've noted, if you decide that's appropriate, that the 4-inch fiber cement lap siding shall have a wood-like finish and shall only be utilized at the proposed second floor addition on the rear elevation. The fiberglass windows shall only be utilized on the western rear elevation, and the trim around the fiberglass windows shall still be wood to match the existing trim on the house. Should the commission decide that alternative materials are not appropriate for a potential landmark site, I also have the option of all exterior siding, windows, and trim on the historic home shall be wood. Staff recommends that the Preservation Commission adopt the exemption declaration and approve the landmark designation and certificate of appropriateness for rear additions and exterior alterations to the potentially historic property located at 719 South Elvira Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy. And I do see that We do have the applicants here, I believe. So if the applicants could step forward and maybe walk us through some thoughts on the project.
Sure. Hi, my name is Terry Gasperowick. This is my wife, Lee. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys very much for your time tonight. We see you guys are working really hard and working late, so we really do appreciate your time. We're just really excited to get started on this project. We've been looking for years to try to find a house like this, and there's not very many like it. So it's taken us quite a bit of time to find it. We were maybe hoping to find one in a little better shape, but this is what we got. And I liked her comment that it needs some love, and yeah, it definitely does. It needs someone that really cares about it and wants to restore it. And that's kind of where we are now. So it's taken us about 2.5 years to get to this point after we bought this house. It's taken us quite a while to get through, the construction stuff we're doing and getting permits and kind of get to where we are now. So we're excited to get started. I think we have everything kind of in line now. Just so you guys know, our whole plan from the street is to make this house look exactly like the old Redondo Beach I grew up on. I'm a 3rd generation Redondo Beach resident. And we're really trying to make this house continue to have that look for all the ones that have kind of disappeared in Redondo Beach and along the Esplanade. We really are trying to preserve that. So we're trying to keep all the construction behind the house. We're trying to make sure it stays hidden behind us. It's also important that I kind of make this place useful for my family. So, there's a lot of neat, quirky enough stuff with the house, but there's a few things we got to kind of fix, some of the staircases and some of the stuff we have to kind of make it so you don't bump your head, and some things to get around inside the place and to make the rooms large enough for my family. I have 2 kids, a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, but they're growing really quick. So we're just trying to make sure we have space for them in the house as well. The front of the house, like I said, it really doesn't need any work. We're really happy with that. We like the changes that Mike made. We think the removal of the front door and the stuff that they've done there is really good. So we don't want to do a lot of changes. It's just in the back. And the reason we asked for some of the changes in materials is because going through the ADU project, we've had some real difficulty getting materials. The price of some of the wood products have been 3 times more than we originally started out. Some of the products we just can't even get. So we spend a lot of time attempting to find them or trying to find substitutes or finding substitutes for the substitutes. And it's just been a lot of difficulty. Unfortunately, we picked a really rough time to develop a house. So we're just looking for a little bit of help and allowing us to have some options. So when we do run into walls, we have the ability to keep moving, as opposed to right now where we spend weeks attempting to find materials to try to keep moving. We're just trying to find some options so we can do that. And it'll also help tie our front house into the back house or into the back unit. It'll just give it a feeling of one, right? So when you walk out of one and you look back, you'll see some of the building materials from the front as the same building materials in the back. But it'll all be in the back where you don't see it. But it'll just give a one feel where you walk through and you look back, you'll see what you see in front of you and vice versa. But then once you come out the front of the house, you truly will see all the historical parts, including the stuff we have to restore, the missing windows, a lot of the missing elements from the house that we're going to put back. So the front of the house will truly have that original Redondo Beach feel to it. So that's kind of where we're at. We're just really excited to get started with our plan. We really are excited to restore this home and to make it our family home. I think that's all we really have.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here else that would like to speak on this application?
Chair, we don't have anyone signed up to speak, and then there's no e-comments that have come in.
Okay.
Our designer is also on the line if there are any questions directly for him. But
okay. Does the designer have any comments? Oop, you're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry. Terry basically covered everything. And really just asking for the alternative materials is so that the front and the back house can feel similar and give a nice feeling when you're back there. They expect to use the backyard a lot and the back porch, and it would just create a nice area back there.
Okay. Does any member of the commission have any comments or questions of the applicant or the designer?
I'll make a comment, Chair.
Go ahead.
So in regard to the composite, the fiber cement lap siding for the back of the house, I just wanted to say, I personally do not have a problem with this. I actually had used this particular siding on a house that we built. So I do, know intimately about this type of product. And given that it is on the rear of the house where it's not visible from the front and it doesn't impact, the historical property of your original house, I personally do not have a problem with that.
Chair, if I may, I have a quick comment. First of all, thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation, and I think at least I can speak for myself. You did a very nice job. The only comment I have is on the north elevation. I noticed that you are omitting an existing window and reducing another one. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't really have too much of a problem with omitting a window, but reducing the window is going to probably go a little bit different than the original building. So I was wondering if there's a chance that you keep the original window size and reduce it from the inside.
So the original window that you're speaking about is not actually an original window. It's actually an aluminum sliding window that we want to remove because it doesn't match with the rest of the project.
I understand that. The one that you want to remove, that's fine. But what about the one that you want to reduce to a half size?
That's the one I'm thinking of.
I understand. So in the original building, there is no half window, right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
In the original building, is there a reduced window?
No, in the original building, the window that's being reduced is actually an aluminum sliding window. So we're removing the aluminum window and we're putting a smaller wood window.
Okay, but you would not consider, keeping the material as a wood. You would not consider doing a full window, so it matches the rest of the thing, the rest of the north elevation.
It's right in front of a sink, so we would like to try and keep it high so that we can put a mirror there.
Okay.
That's the reason why we went with a higher window.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments from members of the commission?
First of all, thank you for preserving the house. Again, I'm the party pooper. I noticed one thing. I noticed one thing in the photo. This is going to be kind of a joke, though. There was a satellite dish, and that's a no.
Do you want it? You can have it if you want it.
So maybe it wasn't your satellite dish, but it was just something that jumped out at me. But yeah, no, I don't have. I like what you're doing. Again, kind of the way it should be done, preserving the look of the house.
And I agree. I was really excited actually to see the project included in the packet for the commission to hear. I had just recently been walking down that street while I was waiting for the results of a COVID test. I think there's an urgent care nearby, and I was just walking around. So I had seen it recently. So with that, is there a motion to close the public participation?
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then does any member of the commission have any questions or comments with staff or just in general? I do not see or hear any. With that, I would entertain a motion if any member of the commission would like to make one.
I'm trying to find that.
I'd make a motion to approve the recommendation by staff.
Does that include the alternative materials?
Yes.
And make sure we have the right conditions.
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. So you will be including the optional conditions.
Yes.
Draft resolution. Excellent.
Is there a second?
Motion. I'll second.
I'll second.
Thank you both. So we have a motion and a second. If we could do a roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer.
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Yes.
Chair Caldwell.
Yes. So congratulations and thank you very much for your patience tonight. I know it was kind of a long wait to be third.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
We're very excited to get started, and
We are.
we really appreciate your guys' time tonight. This has been great.
And the neighbors are really excited for us to get started too. I think so.
Yeah, it's been sitting too long.
Yeah. So,
Great. So we'll
Thank you.
connect again, Terry and Lee, after the 10-day appeal period, and we'll start moving forward.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your help, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank
as well.
you. So with that concludes our public hearings. And let me just say thank you very much, not only to the members of the commission staff, because we moved through that very quickly, but of course, thank you very much to our newest members of the commission, Commissioner Glassy and Commissioner Tainer, for helping us move through those items. And I should have done this at the very beginning of the meeting, but I was told that Commissioner Matsuno had actually termed off of the commission and was then, of course, reappointed. And I know I, for one, am very grateful for your willingness to return and serve in this commission. Not only do I greatly appreciate hearing your insight, but I also get excited because I know you're excited about it. And so I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So that takes us to one of our last items, item L, items for discussion prior to action. We do have on our agenda discussion and possible action on the election of a chair, vice chair, and selection for subcommittees. And so staff, if you could help guide us through this.
Absolutely. You may recall, for the commissioners who've been with us for a while, we had a variety of subcommittees, but the most active subcommittee is the minor alteration subcommittee. That's where we do most of our, minor window changes, very, very minor maintenance type projects. So that's the main subcommittee I'd love for us to focus on tonight. But let's start with the election of the chair. We have Chair Caldwell, who's been, you've been chair for a couple years now, right? So let's see if anybody else has a suggestion for chair, or up to you on who you feel should be chair.
I would nominate Jeff Matsuno.
Actually, I would renominate Chair Caldwell because I think he does a superlative job on leading the meetings. I think I would get a little bit flustered.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And Chair Caldwell, do you accept the nomination?
I'm happy to do that. If somebody wants to be a chair in training, now would be a great opportunity as the vice chair. Is there anybody that would like to serve as vice chair?
Well,
I don't plan to be absent ever, but if I do.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if no one else wants to do the vice chair, I'll step in.
I'd be happy to make that motion for Commissioner Matsuno to serve as vice chair.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
And let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer,
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Yes.
and Chair Caldwell.
Yes.
Perfect. So we need a motion for Chair Caldwell to continue as chair.
I think we had that motion, Stacy.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. We just didn't vote. There wasn't a roll call vote on that one.
Oh,
No, I apologize. I was merging the two.
you
Yeah, I
merged
think
the two. I'm sorry.
That's what I thought. But
Yeah, I think we took both motions together
Okay.
and it was a one roll call vote for both.
Perfect. Then we're all set. And then who would like to participate in the minor alteration subcommittee? We need 2 members.
Stacey, can I ask you a question about that? Would it be possible for you to email? That's a significant commitment. I know that luckily, I think during COVID, right, the members of that subcommittee got quite a bit done.
Yes.
Would it be possible to continue that one to our next meeting and maybe have you send out some information about the responsibilities? Because I think it would be, we do have new members. We also have a member that's not here, correct?
Yes.
And so maybe we can discuss that next month where people have a better understanding of the roles and responsibilities.
I'd be happy to share more about that before we vote. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right.
But we do, I think we're, Stacey, we're on every other month now, right? Are we still
That's
on?
correct.
So when would the next Preservation Commission meeting be?
So the next regularly scheduled meeting would be Wednesday, January 5th.
But
It's immediately after the holidays. So you each need to let me know if you'll be available January 5th for a meeting.
I know I'll be available, but.
Okay. But you can email me. You don't need to tell me right now.
What would happen if before January 5th, there's a minor alteration concern? Would it be able to be addressed?
If it's not just maintenance, then it would have to wait until we appoint new members.
Yeah.
We as staff can review basic maintenance, but that's it.
Well, I would be willing to do it again. I was on it before, so, and I know it just takes two of us. So.
Great, thank you.
Is there another volunteer? Is there an overview of the time? Yeah.
Well, if I may, we haven't had a minor alteration subcommittee meeting in several months.
Mm-hmm.
During the pandemic last year, 2020, we had meetings not quite every month, but frequently. I want to say we had 6 or 7 meetings last year.
Mm-hmm.
We had all these little projects that didn't involve additional square footage, right? A lot of it's window change outs. And some of them had fencing. Commissioner Matsuno had helped us with fencing on some of the properties. So this year it's been a lot slower. And it's usually a very short agenda of 2 or 3 projects. We put together a 1-page staff report. We do an afternoon Zoom meeting just with the 2 committee members and then Antonio and myself. And we talk about what's proposed. The plans are not as detailed as what we present at the commission. They're not commission level drawings. Usually they're photos of a specific window at a landmark property and the issues with that window and what the proposed replacement will be in both material and design. It's as simple as that. So in the worst case scenario, 1 afternoon a month, maybe, but we haven't had one in several months.
And we always try and work with the schedules of the subcommittee members and try and schedule it when people would be available. So.
And the meetings are quick. I promise you they're about 30 minutes because it's just one window here, a fence here. So all the major alterations come to this group.
So I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Is this something that you would want somebody with experience, or is that something that, you would want a layperson to jump in and help with?
Well, because Commissioner Matsuno, Vice Chair Matsuno, is offering to continue with the subcommittee, he has a wealth of knowledge, two terms with this commission. So I feel like it would be great to have somebody else who's fresh that join the conversation.
Well, I I happily have the time since somehow I'm not working. So if I can be helpful, I'm offering.
Perfect.
That would be great.
And I'm a quick
Yes.
learner, so.
Well, thank you very much for jumping in there. Again, if the burden or the time commitment becomes too great, we're always open to discuss that and have others jump in. I'd be happy to jump in too. I just would feel horrible for staff if they're trying to work with my schedule. I can make no promises. So do we need a motion and a second on that one as well?
Yes.
For Commissioner Matsuno and Commissioner Galassi to serve? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move.
And I'll second it. So let's do a roll call.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer,
Yes.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Yes.
and Chair Caldwell.
Yes. And that brings us to our final three items from staff. Are there any?
I just wanted to welcome the new commissioners. This was a substantial agenda that we had tonight with lots of interesting discussion. But you guys did a great job, and I look forward to working with you and with both commissioners and commissioners in particular, and with Commissioner Galassi on the subcommittee. So welcome aboard. A little bit of trial by fire here tonight, but you guys did a great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, commission items and referrals to staff. Do any members of the commission have any?
If I may suggest, maybe this could be a agenda item for the future meeting. I understand that the decisions that we are making in this commission have some financial implications, primarily for the owner of the properties, or even the neighbors, and hence for the city itself, because of the tax situation. I am not really very familiar with the details of how this works. I think it would be a great idea to just go over this whole thing in either for all of us or maybe individually through some, some material. For example, this is one of the questions I asked today. By the way, let me just stop there for a second. I don't intend to make any of my decisions or vote depending on the financial outcome of our vote. But I think it's very important that we know in our backgrounds what kind of financial or otherwise, just like the way that it's the same thing with the effects on the neighbors with the sunlight. What's the effect of what we are deciding on the city in terms of foregone taxes, things like that. So I love to educate myself on that. And if possible, if we can do it here, that would be great. If the staff believes or if the chair believes that we need to do it on an individual basis, that's perfectly fine too. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put together some information regarding the Mills Act program and how the assessor calculates that.
And especially if I may say, the question I asked today, so if, I love to read material, but I just want to point this out. If an existing landmark property is getting tax benefits, and if somebody basically comes and doubles the size, just like, some of the examples we have seen today, do they get automatically the tax benefit on the entire new property? I'm just curious about that.
I think that's an excellent question, Commissioner Tainer. That could be an item that we can bring back as like an educational item for the commission. So that's very relevant. And we can look forward to addressing that question in the future. That is the landmark status is one piece of what we do is staff liaison to the Preservation Commission. But it is an important piece. There's a great range of the tax benefit that's derived from that. So, it's something that we can definitely talk about in the future.
Okay, thank you.
I just tried to give like I said tonight, I tried to give a brief overview of how that's done but it is something that the county assessors does, and there's a very complex formula that goes into how they arrive at the assessed values. But we've seen, just kind of generally speaking, some properties get somewhere, typically somewhere in the range of a 50% tax break on the valuation. We have seen some that are greater than that, and some that are less. So they don't all benefit equally from the Mills Act, but it's an excellent question to have.
Thank you.
If we do have questions, about the municipal code or whatever, who would we address our questions to?
Yeah, so that would also be something that can be a referral to staff. Okay. There is this delicate balance between what the Preservation Commission takes a look at and what the purview of the commission is versus what's allowed under the municipal code. And so that is it's a sensitive kind of area to look at, and because like you said, there are many property owners that we talk to that are hesitant about moving forward with landmark designation, precisely because they think that once that happens, they will not be able to make any changes to their property, and that they lose control over that. And we hear that as staff time and time again. And so, Commissioner Matsuno, Vice Chair Matsuno, your point very well taken. I think you understand that it is a delicate balance that we have to go through. And so we do take a look at these projects carefully. And we don't like to bring anything forward that we don't feel like we can support. And I think that was really evident tonight. With the projects that we looked at, and but it is something that we could probably address. But
so just you did request the variance on that for ADU on that Avenue C, and it was rejected?
No. That project will be coming forward with a conversion of the guest room in the back to an ADU. That's separate. We have to the ADUs we have to process ministerially, and we have to issue certificates of appropriateness at a staff level for those. So we can't have any discretionary process when it comes to those types of projects, but they have to meet a certain criteria. And so, like I said, there's certain things that are a little bit more complex with accessory dwelling units, with just the general standards depending on the zoning. And there's, a lot of moving pieces. And we have, right now we have the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that's going to be going to the Coastal Commission for their consideration. So that's still pending. And on top of all of that, we also are going to be looking at the residential design guidelines. That's coming forward as well. And that really is a key piece to how, single family residences are developed. And that's kind of one of the biggest areas that we get a lot of feedback. So that's something to kind of look forward to. We're going to have a couple of meetings here, probably first quarter of next year. And we invite the commissioners to all chime in and pay attention to that, because that's really key. And that falls a little bit outside of this commission's purview, but it's an important piece to talk about in the community in general. So it's a hot topic.
Right. Antonio and I are working with the team on the residential design guideline update. and will potentially have some sort of historic component, particularly as it relates to these beautiful historic buildings who are adjacent to non-historic buildings. And maybe the scale and massing should relate a little bit more to each other, right? So as not to detract from the landmark, but we're trying to figure out how that would fit in to the new guidelines.
Right. And we do have in the existing guidelines, we have the upper avenues that are called out, the Clifton Heights area. It would be great if we could have the lower avenues, the Clifton by the Sea, also addressed in the guidelines. We don't have that right now. But like I said, I think it's an area that I think is very charming. It's wonderful. And I think it's worth preserving and being sensitive into how that's developed and how that changes in the future. So something to pay attention to. Like I said, we're already raising those flags with the consultant that we're working with. So we hope that that's something that can, that the commission can chime in on, and that we have a substantial amount of public input on.
Well, I don't know if it's the present staff. If it is, I'll thank you. But one thing that we haven't had to deal with that I dealt with in my first term were a lot of requests for demolitions of potential historic resources, and that was always very uncomfortable. But I haven't seen one in the last term, so
we're fending them off.
Yeah,
we are.
It doesn't mean that you won't see those coming forward, but yeah, we're trying our darndest to keep those at bay.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Where can I see that list of the 104 landmark homes?
We don't have our webpage updated, but we can share an Excel spreadsheet with you to show you all the landmark properties that we have. Yeah,
I think we do. There has been a listing on the website in the past. If we can get Lena maybe to chime in. I know she works very diligently in updating that, and
it needs a full redo, Antonio.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of a redo. When the city transitioned to a different web server, so then so some of the links were disconnected, and so it does need a little bit of a cleanup. But then, the focus ended up being on like the current planning projects and, things like the general plan update and getting those all up and running, before then looking at some of the other pages such as preservation. So, but we do maintain just our own internal Excel list that we can certainly send out, but the webpage does need a bit of a redo.
Yes.
Okay.
And is there a list of non-residential buildings or parks or whatever industrial buildings that have been designated as landmarks in Redondo Beach?
There are.
Yeah.
They're included in that list.
Any
we
chance
actually
we
have,
can get that too? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a survey that actually includes a lot of other properties that were identified as resources as well. And we can share that with the commissioners too.
I think I have a copy. I don't know if it's the survey. It has not only landmarks, but all the potential historic properties, and they're A, B, and C rated.
Absolutely, yes.
Even a B rating, I think.
That would be great, Jeff. I'd be really interested to see that. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. So we do have one comprehensive list that's all the rated properties, A through D, and then each of the landmark properties is then noted as well in that list.
And we can definitely provide that.
Is there in that Excel spreadsheet, is it noted which of those properties have had alterations done to them? Is it that detailed or no?
No, it wouldn't be that detailed.
A lot of the times that's some of the, when we get historic inquiries, we go out and take a look and then, try and discern whether the properties have had alterations or not. in the case, like I think there was one instance tonight that was mentioned where someone had asked for landmark designation, and we went out and said that it wouldn't be eligible. We've had several requests like that. Very charming, very beautiful homes, but when we go out and physically look at the site, sometimes we find that there have been substantial alterations to the exterior cladding, to the windows, and then it's not original. So there's times when we have to politely and tell them that we can't move forward with the landmark designation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had the opposite too, where people want to have the properties unlisted, and we go out and do a preliminary investigation, and we find that it actually is significant. We have several cases like that, in front of us pending. So, it kind of goes both ways sometimes. So the list is just a starting point.
Got it. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you Thank you very much to everybody. Staff, obviously, great presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
We're actually, sorry, Chair, we actually technically need a motion. And a second for
I
adjournment.
apologize.
It's okay.
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you very much. Let's do a roll call one last time.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Galassi,
Yes.
Commissioner Tainer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Matsuno,
Yes.
and Chair Caldwell.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Thanks again.